Tim Hawthorne here, a Druid and Elder Bard of Gorseth in Yswitrin, and welcome to my garden again. It's a couple of days before new moon, before Beltaine, and that means it's going to be the busiest month of my year. So I just want to sort of show you my process really that I go through over the new moon. It starts off with a bit of weeding. I mean, we've already got weeds again, and then I'm going to plant out some plants, some that I've grown from seed, some that I've just bought in, and I'll do that, most of that sort of before the new moon. Try and get all the weeding and sort of editing done before the new moon, and then after the new moon I shall be sowing more seeds, ready to plant out. Beltaine is a time of dramatic change. Traditionally it marked the movement into summer pasture from winter pasture. The Celts basically divided the year into two halves, a dark half from Samhain to Beltaine and a light half from Beltaine to Samhain, and we're just moving into this kind of light warm half of the year, which is basically our growing season. We're going to be having a big community celebration on the 1st of May. Loads of people will come to town and process up the high street. That's on the 1st of May. Now that's the calend of May. So this is following the Roman Christian calendar, and originally I believe the calend would have actually been the new moon, and then the Romans had another festival called the Ides, which would have happened around the full moon, and in between them there's the nones, which is basically the first quarter of the moon. So we're just moving into the calend, which is the first of any month essentially now, now that the calendar has moved out of sync with the moon. Obviously, as a Druid, I'm more interested in where the moon's at than some sort of arbitrary calendar which doesn't really quite sync with the moon anymore. It syncs with the sun perfectly well. Even so, we've got some slight oddnesses, which is that the solar cross-quarter day is probably going to be more like the 4th or 5th of May. I haven't actually looked precisely, but that doesn't fall on the 1st. And the new moon, in fact, happened last night this year, and that shifts around. It's a movable feast. It means every year is different, and that's because agriculturally the relationship of the moon to the solar cycles is different every year. The next full moon will be the hare moon by my calculation. Now, Americans will call this the flower moon according to the Farmer's Almanac. In Britain it's known as the hare moon sometimes. I mean, it very much depends on the area you come from. So the last moon, the Easter moon, was the seed moon or the egg moon, and now we're moving into the hare moon, which is our basically busiest month of the year, and that will be followed in June with the strawberry moon, which I think is the same as Americans, or Americans might celebrate that slightly different time. Not quite sure. That's the way I do it. Your mileage may vary. Now we're coming up to Beltaine, it's time to plant. We can plant out some of the more sensitive plants, not the totally tender ones. I'm leaving the tomatoes until, I won't plant out tomatoes until next month. They can stay indoors in their pots. I'm just going to pot them up. So now it's time to plant out beans, brassicas and beets. That's a lot of bees, and they're my three main food groups for harvest. So these are the plants which are going to feed me over the course of the years. I think we're going to start with beans. let's talk about germination. I've been having some problems germinating beans. You can see here, I've got one rather decent specimen, as you can see. The butter beans did a bit better. As you can see, I've managed to get 4 plants out of that. So I decided to try this new experiment, and here you can see I've got some butter beans, and they're just starting to sprout, and the chickpeas, I think you can see they're just starting to sprout now, and look, most of them are sprouting. Okay, I mean, it's not a problem of getting the things to sprout. And here's some borlotti beans I prepared earlier, and then I've decided to leave the rest in the sprouter, so they're just forming a single layer. So what I will probably do is plant these out in the garden. So I just want to introduce you to a couple of my the tools I'm going to be using. I just bought a dibber, which will be useful for actually planting things in the ground. Maybe do a bit of a close-up of that, we'll see. Yeah, that's good for sticking the seedlings in. Last year I treated myself to one of those. You can see that. This is called a hori hori, and it's a Japanese gardening tool. I've never got on with trowels. I find that they inevitably bend when subjected to any form of stress whatsoever. This is, you can see, it's sort of a much more sturdy tool, and it's got a kind of saw blade on one side, sharp point knife edge, so it's a bit like a sort of gardening knife, if you like, and it's usefully got measurements marked off, quite similar to the, look, here they go together very nicely. I use it nearly all the time for weeding. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife. You can use it for all sorts, any sort of like focused digging jobs, weeding, chop and drop. I mean, at some points in the gardening cycle, it's rarely out of my hand, particularly at this time of year. From weeding through to planting out, this is brilliant. So up till now it's been all about the broad beans. And this year I'm experimenting with raising some butter beans, and I've got a chickpea here as well. And I've got some more sprouting indoors, but I'm going to stick these in the ground so they can get on with growing. Here's the finished 4 butter beans in place. I'm going to raise some more. I've got 6 more poles there that could be filled up, and I'll talk to you a bit about the fun I'm having germinating butter beans indoors in a little bit, and I'll just show you over here. I've got this little sort of construction here with there's my chickpea plant. I think I've got another couple over there on their way, and so attempts to raise these plants in April, not hugely successful, but I think May is going to be a bit better for chickpeas in particular. I don't have that butter beans, but we'll see. And I don't think this structure here is really, let's come back a bit, I don't think that's necessarily going to be, I haven't really given enough space for the chickpeas, but it's an experiment. and we'll see how it does, and if I have a degree of success with them, perhaps we'll give them a bit more space next year. The thing about having limited space like I've got here is you have to be quite organised. Having planted out some of the stuff in the garden, I've now cleaned up the pots, and I've got, having emptied these out, I've now refilled them with compost there, and I'm ready to plant some more beans. I might sow some of these outside as well. It's a great time of year. This is day before new moon, right at the end of April, which means a lot of stuff can still be sown in modules, but it can also be quite happily sown out of doors. And with quite a lot of stuff, I'm going to try both, especially new things. Now I just want to introduce you to some of my tools here. If you've watched other videos, you'll be familiar with my little dibber. This was actually whittled by my son when he was about 6, and I decided to turn it into a little potting dibber. It's got a slightly sharp end on one end, and then this end sort of marked with measurements of 1 centimetre, I think, yeah, 1 centimetre, 2 centimetres, 2.5. That's usually enough for most things. And I've got a selection of useful little tools for sort of if I need a bit more detail or whatever, and the all important marker pens and labels, and I've got some little pots there. Oh yeah, and a little sieve. This is a 5mm sieve for shaking compost on top of some of the finished. Probably this is for the smaller seeds really. We're not going to use that right now. So my experiment here with the beans has been rather successful. At least for most of them. So as you can see, I've got a whole load of borlotti beans ready to go. They smell absolutely rank, it has to be said. And there's lots of chickpeas ready to do their thing. And I'm seeing a good rate of germination here, so I don't know if that's to do with the time of year, whether it's to do with this seed sprouter has just seems to be delivering, and because I was having problems, I think I may have mentioned, only a few plants. I got 4 butter beans which I've just planted out, and I've only had a couple of chickpeas so far. Well, this looks like I could have a lot more of those. I'm certainly going to be alright for borlotti beans. The butter beans haven't done so well. I mean, I can see a few sprouted here, so I'm going to plant up the 4 best looking ones, I think, and I might stick a couple more in the ground, and then the rest of these are just going to get chucked away. Sometimes it's not possible to raise everything you need from seed. I've particularly found that things like herbs, thyme, I've not had any success with raising thyme from seed, so I've gone and got some stuff from young plants. I've got these 3 alliums in over here, as I spoke about the last time. The point of this border here is really to act as a pest barrier. I've got some carrots growing over here, I'll show you, and I've actually managed to get them growing in April this time. I found carrots very difficult to get to germinate. Once they get to this stage, there's a reasonable chance I'm going to end up with some carrots, so that's quite good. Anyway, so I'm going to stick, this is marjoram, and I'm going to stick some thyme in here. I've got some garlic chives to go with the alliums, and the idea here is to basically put in some really strong smelly plants to distract the carrot fly. I mean, these are already sort of like half a metre high. I've got the carrots completely encased in mesh, and that seems to not only keep the carrot fly away, but also the slugs and snails don't seem to be able to find their way underneath it, which is really great. So I'm just going to stick these in the ground. In this bed, as you can see, I'm going to plant some hollyhocks that I've raised from seed, and some pinks which I've also raised from seed. So these are my plants. Now, as you can see, I've actually positioned them quite close together. It's quite useful to put them out in pots like this, and you can kind of see how much space they're likely to need. And there we go. Here we've got the turnips and radish and mustard that I planted last new moon. This row of mustard is getting overshadowed by both the radishes and the turnips. So I've got some more turnips and some kohlrabi to plant out here. I need to do a little bit of bed prep. So I need to make sure that I'm actually not planting the turnips too close together. And as you can see from the width of this, I mean, that's a good cubit, isn't it? Did I mention measuring with parts of the body? So I need to put the next row in at least an arm's length, half an arm's length, about there, I reckon. So here's the kohlrabi and turnips ready to go in, and I'm just going to do a bit of weeding. So the tools I present: a rake and a draw hoe. These are my favourite tools. Your mileage may differ. That's the kohlrabi and the turnips, and I've put some more over here. I've just put a cover over this, and next we do the beets. That's the brassica bed with this month's seedlings planted out, and I'm going to sow some more tomorrow and then plant them out. So this bed's a little bit more straightforward. This is, you can see there's 2 rows of spinach. I'm a bit worried about them because they're going a bit yellow. I've already chopped back the borage here, just in case it is overshadowing it. Maybe that'll have to come out, we'll see. and then beyond it I'm going to plant the beets. So I've got some beetroot, some normal chard and some giant chard, so that's probably going to fill up the space. And so that's it, that's the beets sown. They're looking a bit floppy at the moment, obviously they will perk up. And I've still got a bit of space there that I can probably interplant a few things later in the year, maybe sow a few more beetroot, you know, see what happens to the spinach, maybe a bit more radicchio, who knows, all to play for really. But anyway, that giant chard at the back is probably my dinner for the next year, so I'm very excited about that, and the rainbow chard in front will probably add to it as well. So good day's work. As you can see, the sun's fairly low in the sky now. Finally, after all that prep work, it's time to sow some more seeds. This month I am trying out this new size, these Charles Dowding sized modules, and they're made of much more durable plastic, so they're supposed to last a lifetime. You're supposed to be able to stand on them. I'm not going to try that out to show you. I don't know if you can actually see what I'm doing here, but anyway, I'll have a talk to you about what I'm doing while I'm sowing out my some more brassicas. I mean, as you've seen, I've nearly filled up the space in the garden, but there is a bit more space, and one of the things I've got a bit of room for is some more brassicas and things. So I'm going to sow some and see what happens. These modules come with this interesting little sort of dibber thing, which can be used for all sorts of things. Can also be used for, I think, spacing. Anyway, I thought it was a bit silly, but I've actually just tried it out. It's quite a good way of you can sort of press it in gently, and there we go. We've got a nice little centre detent there. I think most of these seeds are probably don't want to be that deep, so what I'm going to do is more or less surface sow them. It's time to sow the kalettes. Now I don't need very many of these, so I'm just going to sow one row and hope that that does what I need it to do. Specks. These are small, need specks. Okay, so put 2 in each module. Let's done. Oh, I should have bought a pen so I can tick them off. I shall probably remember. So next we'll do purple sprouting, and no, I haven't forgotten about the labels. Well, maybe slightly. Again, not going to oversow these because I just haven't got that much room left. and some Hungry Gap kale. It's a little bit bigger, not very much. These you could sow as salad leaves if you wanted. I want some plants I can overwinter now. We'll maybe have some salad later in the year, I don't know. See how it all goes. Right. These are really good for stuff that is going to go, I want to plant out pretty much in a month's time. So they don't need a lot of soil, they just need enough soil there to keep them moist so that they germinate. And these come with a nice, well, you have to buy this as well, but with quite a nice little tray there, which allows the water to drain, so they're not actually sitting in the water. That should help prevent a bit of overwatering. And then when I move them up, I use the smallest pots I can possibly find. So most stuff is getting potted up into 7 centimetre pots. That's only it's the next size up from these modules. Basically, it's not very big because nearly everything I'm sowing here is going to get planted out in the garden at some point. So the bigger the pot it goes in, the bigger the hole I'm going to have to dig in the garden, the more soil I have to disturb. So that's why these really small modules are such a good thing, because it means these I can just make a hole with the dibber. It only has to be a couple of inches deep. So there we go. The only thing left to do is whack a bit of sprinkling. Whee! We shall not fall off the table onto the floor. Thank you very much. Deck that now before it gets dangerous. And I'm just gonna. So this is what I'm sprinkling on top has been sieved to 5 mil, and I mean mil that this time. So it should be nice and fine and not cause any problems for the seedlings. And we have it. There we go. That's my entire brassicas for the year sown in a really small space, and this is important because I think you can probably see it's not, I haven't got a huge space here. So that's it for my new moon adventures. We're now well on our way to Beltaine. Thank you very much for joining me, and you know, click like and subscribe and do all those things, won't you? And I will see you in the next video. Just a little brain trying to just a little brain